tell us about yourself.
So my name is Dani Lemberger, born in Israel. I grew up in Israel, in England, even 1 year in Belgium, and then studies in France, back in Israel, and lived many years in the US. I studied economics, statistics in Haifa University, then an MBA degree from INSEAD, Institut Européen d'Administration in Fontainebleau, France. I worked many years in business as an executive for big corporations in Israel and the US.
Okay, so what are you currently doing?
Well, I have a business that I run. It's a real estate business, but that's not very interesting. What I do mainly is working with philosophy developed by Ron Hubbard and helping other people make their lives more successful, happier. That's it.
Good. Now, what began your spiritual search?
Well, as early as I remember myself, as a teenager, I wanted to understand life. I was asking myself questions. What am I doing here? Why am I here? What is the purpose of my life? What is life? And when you think of life, then of course you think of death. What happens after death? What happened before I was born? Etc., etc. All these questions about life. And of course, how do I make myself more happy? How do I help myself? And how do I help others? And how do I gain knowledge about life? And this set me on a quest for understanding, for wisdom. The quest is not done yet. I'm still researching and studying and communicating to people.
What did you try on your way?
So from an early age, I read many, many books, self-help, philosophy, mysticism. Many years I did meditation, I did Zen Buddhism. I read the books of Alan Watts and Carlos Castaneda and many, many others. And I spent 5 or 6 years in psychoanalysis with a great psychologist, Professor Gilan. He studied in Switzerland under students of Sigmund Freud. He was a good guy, and I worked with him many years. So many, many things I did to try to understand myself and understand life.
Great. And how did it help you?
Well, it helped me, and all of these things were valuable, but they all sort of came to an end when I saw that there was some progress made, and then it goes flat, and there's no more change and improvement. And among many things that I heard about and asked about, somebody told me about Ron Hubbard and Hubbard's philosophy. And I said, well, it's something I need to check out one day.
What was your conclusion from your search up to that point?
Well, I saw that these things have a limited effect. They give some help, some improvement, but pretty soon it sort of, I saw that there was no more progress made. I had many more questions for which I did not receive an answer. I didn't think it practical for me to go into a monastery up in Tibet and sit 30 years, do nothing, and maybe come back enlightened, an old man, a bodhi, enlightened, coming back. And after 5 years of psychoanalysis, I one day asked my psychologist, Professor Gilan, I said to him, tell me, what is the purpose of what we're doing? And he was a bit surprised that I would ask the question after 5 years of doing it. And he said, well, Sigmund Freud defined the purpose of psychoanalysis as bringing a person to the point of being able to love and work. He probably said it in German, Arbeit und Liebe. And I said to him, well, this I have achieved. I'm happily married to a lovely woman. I have work. I'm highly educated. I have a good job. I have a career. But I have still so many questions about life unanswered. but probably continuing this, talking to some guy for hours and hours and hours, is not going to enlighten me further. So I continued my search.
Where did the spiritual search lead you?
Well, I continued looking for data and information and wisdom about life. And one day a friend brought me a book by Hubbard, Dianetics. I read it. I don't think I understood everything. It's not an easy book to read, but it was interesting, galvanizing. I said, wow, this is something I need to find out more about. A year or so later, Tammy and I got married. We traveled. We arrived in San Francisco. And that was an opportunity. I said, okay, I'm here, sort of traveling on vacation. I have a lot of free time. And we went into the local branch of, where they deliver the philosophy of Hubbard. And we started doing courses there. And
well, let me stop you right here.
Yeah.
Ron Hubbard is a controversial personality in today's media, and you have academic degrees. Weren't you kind of suspicious before starting it?
No, because I don't need for other people to tell me what is valid or not valid. I can judge for myself. I read the book, I read more books, I found it interesting. I said, there may be truth here, let me explore this further. Mind you, this is 1980, and in those years, Hubbard was not viewed like he is today. Certain unfortunate things have happened with Hubbard's organization, and there are people now working hard to discredit Hubbard, to damage his repute. People from inside the organization that he established. So this is of no big significance to me. And I did courses, I studied, and I checked things out for myself. It's like I'm not asking you, the viewer, to believe in anything or to take my word for it. You study, you do it, you see for yourself.
Okay, but still Ron Hubbard's works are not accepted in the world's academies. Didn't you want some approval, some authority approving his works before you started to deal with his works?
No, on the contrary. I mean, sometimes people come to me and they say to me, well, you say you can help me. Do you have a psychology degree? Are you a doctor? What are you? And I laugh and I say, look, the academia takes care of the academia. The universities, they need to take good care of the universities. They are not source of truth. The only truth there is in what you see for yourself. You must never seek approval or authority. You have to examine things for yourself, study them, see what is true for you. So I never worried about that point, and it's immaterial. It's irrelevant for me. Like I said, I read the books, I did the drills, I applied the philosophy to my life, the tools, and I saw the results. And then when you see results, you don't need belief, and you don't need somebody else to give you approval of what you know.
Good. Tell me a little bit about the listening process that you got back in 1980 in San Francisco.
Well, actually, when we started, I was not so interested in treating myself with listening processes, but rather in studying, learning, understanding what this philosophy is, and gaining the tools. And so the first thing we did is what is called the communication course, and it's a set of drills that are very simple, but the results from doing them are spectacular. You experience very significant changes, and you become aware of yourself, not through what people tell you about you and what you think you should be, but just a sensation, a self-awareness, a sensation of who am I, and what is my essence, what am I really? And you see that, you become aware of that, and it's a fantastic experience. So I did this, and then I moved on to more courses. We did something called the Purification Rundown, cleansing the body of toxins and drugs and medicine. And then finally I got also listening, which was fantastic.
Okay, if you can compare this listening process with the psychoanalysis that you got, what are the differences?
It's huge, it's huge. I mean, 5 years of psychoanalysis can give you the gains of maybe 10 or 20 hours of listening. It's such a huge difference. Listening is very focused, is very accurate, it's structured. And Hubbard developed hundreds of processes. He discovered that there is a mental charge that can be located with a special electronic device, and you can really zero in on what is troubling a person and just get rid of it. So a person can achieve very significant gain, improvement in a very short time.
Great. Well, can you tell me your exact gains from this listening process that you got in San Francisco? What did you get from it?
Well, it's made me happier. It's made me aware of myself as a spirit, and the spirit is immortal. I know that I'm occupying this body called Dani Lemberger temporarily. This body may be good for 80 years. If I really work hard at it, I can make this body run maybe 85 years. But the body has an expiration date. You leave the body, you, the spirit, you go on. A lot of the fears that I had, the bad moods, the times I was sad, all that is gone. And the bad effect that I had from past traumas, because me, like any person, like you, the viewer, I've experienced rough times, I've been through traumas, and these things affected me for many, many years, but now I know I'm free of this bad effect. I'm happy, confident, lively, energetic, capable of doing things. A person is basically logic or rational, and based on what is happening now, based on data that you have now, you should be able to reach logical conclusions and make the best decision possible. What disrupts this and intervenes is memories of the past that become reactivated. So you're now actually under the influence of something negative that happened in your past. We call this a trauma. A trauma is an incident that has long-lasting negative effect on the person. And once you achieve the state that we call clear, and I have achieved the state a few years ago, you can make decisions as a clean slate, now in present time, based on the real data that is at hand now, without being overwhelmed or affected by stuff that happened a long time ago.
Good. If this technology that you're describing is so good and powerful, why is that it's not that popular around the world?
Well, you're right. We have a bit of a paradox here, and it's unfortunate that this knowledge is limited to relatively few people. It has not broken out into the mainstream, into the hospitals, into the universities, into people helping other people are not using this technology. There are two major reasons. One is the organization that Hubbard set up was taken over by evil people who have no good intention and are destroying the good use of it. The other thing is that the medical doctors, the psychiatrists, the academia. These people have their vested interests or their own uh, fixed ideas, and they're not willing to learn, to study, and to find out new data about life and about improving life.
Good. And what is, in your opinion, the biggest lie in connection to mental or spiritual improvement?
Well, the last, I don't know, 150 years, we have this idea that life is a biological, chemical phenomenon. That the source of life is in the brain, and understanding life, you need to research the brain, and billions of dollars and tens of thousands of the most brilliant people are looking to understand life by digging into the brain. Of course, their results are dismal because they're looking in the wrong place. Just as an example, half a year ago, I flew from Berlin back home to Israel, and next to me sits a young Chinese lady. Later on, I found out she was not so young, and pretty lady, and we start talking. Yes, she's Chinese. She was born, she grew up in China, and then at about the age of 20, she moved to the US, and for over 10 years, she studied the brain. She's not a medical doctor. She's a brain researcher. And now she lives in Germany and works in a very reputable institute for brain research in Magdeburg. And we got to talk because I asked her, what are you doing? And how comes you're flying from Germany to Israel? And there's a big conference of scientists in Jerusalem who research the brain. And like for 3 hours, she's telling me about this. And finally, I told her what I do. That I wrote a book about life, about the spirit, and that the source of life is the spirit, it's not the brain. And she says, oh no. And I said, what's that? And she says, well, if what you're saying is true, then tens of thousands of people are going to be out of work and we will lose billions of dollars. So I hope what you're saying is not true. So all people, even of good intention, are trapped in their own fixed ideas, their own vested interests, their own prejudices, their own backgrounds and education. So the sciences, chemistry, biology, physics, try to tell us that they have the knowledge of life, but check it out, it's not true.
Got it. Don't you have a vested interest in what you're doing?
No. No, because I am not asking you to believe in what I'm saying. I'm not telling you that I know. I'm no authority, and I don't want you to believe me. So I'm giving you the book. Well, I'm selling it to you at a very low price, and you can buy the book, you can read it, you can decide for yourself if it makes sense or not. But most important, and this was a basic tenet of Hubbard's philosophy, he said, do not believe in what I say. My philosophy is here for you to study, to understand, to drill, and to apply. So when you learn the tools and you practice them, you can see for yourself what works for you, what does not work for you. So I'm saying, don't believe in what I say. Don't look at me as an authority. You know, read the book. It has drills in it. It has a lot of things you can do. You do it. You see for yourself if you get benefit out of it. And after 1 hour or 2 hours of listening, you know more about life, then you say, hey, my understanding of self and life has increased. So this thing has benefit. That's all.
Good. All right. So I know that you had a great job in the US. Why did you move back to Israel and open a center in Israel?
Well, I've never had a strong interest in making money and being a great businessman or a top executive for a corporation. Wasn't my thing in life. We studied, my wife Tammy and I, we studied Hubbard's philosophy for many years. We decided that we want to practice it. That's what we want to do in life. Bring this knowledge to other people. Uh, there are many people doing it in the US. We decided to do it back home. We got our family interested. Tammy's father became very enthusiastic about this project, and he died. Very smart engineer, very clever man. He said, let's do this together in Haifa, Israel. And we went back, we opened our center in 1992, 26 years ago. We've been working now all these years. It has expanded steadily. We are now a group of over 10 people, servicing more than 100 people, many more than 100 people coming from Israel, from Europe, to get services. And I derive joy from teaching others and seeing that they can help yet others. So it's giving tools to people to make the lives of others better.
Good. What led you to writing your own book?
Well, that's easy, because I have studied almost everything that Hubbard wrote and lectured. There's tens of books, hundreds or thousands of bulletins and articles, and thousands of lectures he gave. And the knowledge is found in all his writings. But if a new person comes along and says to me, hey, Danny, this is interesting, what I heard you say or what you're doing, and I'd like to know what it is, well, I need to send him to many different books, and I need to tell him to gather data from many different sources. So that's not easy. The basic book where Hubbard laid out his discoveries was written in 1950, the book Dynetics. It's not an easy book. It's a big tome. It has a lot of data in it, written in technical, scientific, medical language that not every person can easily grasp. And then, after 1950, Hubbard continued his research. He made many, many more discoveries and changed the technology, and it evolved very rapidly. So you need to take all this data and distill it. Take the key factors, the most important elements, and put them together. It's like you'd have a popular science book. So the idea is to get the key data, and the book has two parts to make it easy for the reader. The first part, understanding, has a lot of the elements of the philosophy, a lot of data about life in a simple way with examples, some jokes to make the reading lighter and more pleasant. And then the second part is doingness, application. So you do the techniques, and the techniques Hubbard developed over many, many years, and he simplified them. So I rearranged it so it has the right sequence, so you get the best results possible. And the result is that any person, anywhere in the world, the book has already been translated to 5 languages. I wrote it in English and in Hebrew, and then it's translated already into Russian, French, Latvian. So any person in the world, and we're going to translate it into more languages. So easy to read, easy to understand, easy to drill, and then you do it, you do the processes, and you find out for yourself. So in this book that I wrote called LifePower, you can work on it with a friend, or you can decide to go professional coach, LifePower coach, or you can come to a LifePower center to study. But if you go the easiest and least expensive approach and you say, I want to do it myself, you buy 2 copies of the book, one for yourself, one for your partner, and the 2 of you start studying and drilling, and everything is in the book, the exact guidelines and all the steps for drilling. And then you just do the technique, the processes. Now, I must caution you, do not tamper with it. Don't try to change. Don't try to be more clever than Hubbard or the guy who wrote the book, myself. After you practice this for many years, maybe you can improve and elaborate. But for now, just do it as it's written. This is a user's manual to the mind. We have the data, we have the knowledge, just do it. So you read the book, you drill it, you practice it, And you find out that you can improve your memory, you can get rid of past traumas that affect you negatively. And you can make yourself and your partner, the person you're working with, more happy, more confident, more stable.
Okay. So, is it dangerous to tamper with somebody else's mind?
No, 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 no. It's dangerous only when you force something, when it's physical, when it's violent, such as drugs, chemicals, imprisonment. You jail somebody, you tie him up to his bed in a psychiatric institute. That is a terrible trauma, and it makes the person worse. You lock him up somewhere, you make him worse. You force him to take chemicals, you make him worse. But if you ask him questions and you let him talk about himself, there can be no damage. You know, the person talks about himself. Maybe something unpleasant will come up, some unpleasant memory. Well, the memory is unpleasant, it's traumatic because he never spoke about it. He could never tell anybody. He was afraid to talk about it. He would be punished if he talked about it, or he forgot it. So now we are taking things out of we call it the reactive mind, the subconscious, this storage place of past traumas. We approach it in a gradual way. We find things there that the person, happened to the person. He never looked at them. He never spoke about them. Now he can talk about it, and it gives him a lot of freedom and a lot of, he feels a lot better after talking about this thing. It gives a lot of relief to look at it and to talk about it.
Right.